Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Edwin, for that very brilliant talk. And I think it has been a historical lesson as well as a legal lessons. Before I open up for questions, when I listened to our speaker, he made mention of some key points, Article 76B of the UN, I think the Bill of Rights, which we need to take note of. And also, he did mention of the communist folks, which my question will come from there. And of course, the lack of consciousness of the sovereignty. And of course, failing to take advantage of the legal premises which were thrown to us. Mr. Edwin, I thank you again once more. But before I open up the floor, I want to ask you this question. Do you think, following with the current scenario, are Ambazonians ready for a state of their own?
Yes, we are even more than ready. We are the most legitimate case in the entire world. And I'll use this word in parentheses for self-determination. But our self-determination is not a political one and must never, never be made political. It is a case of simply deconstructing the constitutional fabric of an entity called Cameroon. So we are the best case for independence in the world as of today. That's why.
What I mean is admit that we are the best case of independence. Now, given the polarity that is existing between different groups or different Ambazonian groups, and some of recent taking the position of warlords, not willing to relinquish power, some even after being sworn in for a period of maybe 2 years are still not willing to give it. In this scenario, because it might be argued, like you said in your presentation, that we are still being considered as, should I say, Cafoconis. There's no need to give us independence. That's why, do you think psychologically the people are ready for independence or relevance?
You see, what you have to identify is the representative of the people who are supposed to have done the best, supposed to have been working for the best interest of the people, but they are actually now working for the best interest of the people. What needs to be done to make correction from these ills is to reframe a change process that is correlating with the facts of our history. And if any political representative is not in alignment with that, then the Amazonian people just need to ignore or not deal with them. You see, we are in the quest now. What is going on is a quest for hegemony among the groups of our struggle. But to correct that problem, there's no way we can adjudicate it. There's no jury, there's no court. We will have to basically carve ourselves out, a group of Ambazonians, psychologically, mentally, physically, will have to start initiating the process of inculcating a new change ideology, which of course is not a new one. The right one will have to be the constitutional based ideology, because we have only two choices, mark you. If you do not accept that you have a sovereignty which is constitutionally traceable, and if you do not accept that there are principles of what I call international law that you should have taken advantage of, such as the principle of territoriality and the ancient principle of, you could call it pacta sunt servanda, meaning agreements should be kept. We have so many agreements that have been abrogated that it does not even make any sense for us to go and be making a case today. We just need to relitigate the past. Then you then have to have only the other choice for changing, for imposing a change. And this is very factual. If you can't accept what you already have, then do the other change process, which is the ultimate cohesive change process, which is war. If you want to fight the war, then go and do it right. Not the current thing that is going on in Ground Zero. That is not how to fight and prosecute a war. And we knew that. So what is going on is that we are still lending some kind of credibility to these, I'll call it politicians who came into the struggle without having done their homework. And if we think that these are the people to representing us, then you just have to go back and imagine what French and Endele did to us when the people had voted for independence at 68% vote. And now we find ourselves annexed. So we cannot be repeating things like this. We have to find a way to leap over this nonsense.
All right. No, thank you very much. I've noted the hand of Comrade DA and Comrade Valentine. Please, anyone who has a question, you will just lift up your hand. I will note it, and I'll give you your own turn. May I please also announce that we've got 25 more minutes left for questions and answers. So may you please summarize your question so that our comrade can be able to respond to you. In other words, we'll avoid lengthy comments and questions that he might even forget where we begin from. Comrade DA, may I please get your question on mute?
Thank you very much, Comrade Edwin. I'm very pleased that you raised a very important issue in our struggle, because when you go back to our history and see the repeated opportunities that our forefathers had, and none of which they claimed, you really see the issue of consciousness that you are raising. There's so much that you have talked about, which one could really have time to comment about, but there's not much time. My greatest concern is that this struggle was led by the leader of the Ambazonian leader, Chief Gojidinka, but at no one time, even the accusation that you make that in 1984 we didn't cease it, he never ceased it. You are citing a court case in Cameroon's courts. You know that the Cameroon courts are incompetent to resolve a dispute between two states. So I don't know how legal minds can cite the case in Bamenda as a case that could give us anything. Because you see, if you consider us as a state, then you know that you cannot go to the court of the enemy that has occupied your own state to have your matter resolved there. These are matters for the ICJ, for international jurisdictions to resolve. So why is it that up to today, we never heard of a case that was instituted? Yes, there was an interpleader that was instituted by the state of Ambazonia, but that is not a case on its own that you filed for our rights to be recognized. All of what we are saying here, unless you go before the ICJ, you cannot claim those rights by any arguments anywhere else, because no matter how right you are, there's nobody to adjudicate on the matter. So the fundamental question we're asking is, why is it that the state of, the Republic of Ambazonia has never taken up this matter to the ICJ? And these repeated issues that you are raising, we say that we were annexed in 1961, yet you are telling us that it was in 1984 that the Cameroon broke from the union. I don't know what union there was when we were annexed in 1961, that in 1984 Cameroon is breaking away from it. So these are some of the contradictions that, as much as you have brought up a very important issue, there are lots of issues that you have mixed up here, which really confuse ordinary people who want to understand our story very clearly. Thank you very much. I don't need to elaborate because there's not much time. Thank you.
I should have said that I do default to the positive law interpretation, and I am psychologically in tune to serving my best interests. By that means that I will not even care about analyzing a law if a higher law exists that is self-explanatory. Well, what you're saying is simply a situation that is like a chicken and the eggs dilemma. Now that we have been annexed in 1961, we use that language to impose upon our psychology a sense of anger so that we can do something about it. But technically, it went on as a federal Republic of Cameroon, even though it was a totalitarian state. So the facts of the matter is that so-called Federal Republic of Cameroon was dissolved constitutionally, and the process of state creation and state extinction happened. Those two elements of international law was seized upon opportunistically, and now we have the Republic of Ambazonia. I will now say that if you are also in team with me with the positive law interpretation, you will not be bothered about the details about whether I said in 1961 we are next. I say that in some context because that's exactly what happened, but there was no, our leaders actually, like Muna, was sending congratulatory letters to United Nations saying everything was fine. But to get our people aroused to have a sense of entitlement to their rights, you use certain terminologies. The legal aspect is that the confederation was dissolved. The principle of state succession and the principle of state extinction and state succession timely occurred, and the Republic of Ambazonia is a successor state. Now we have a problem in that we are a state. To get a state effectively operating in our modern society needs recognition. We know that going in. We have studied this matter, but we needed to demonstrate, they call it show cause, in Cameroon courts that we had exhausted all remedies. Those are the reasons why we filed those cases. It was not because we went there even contemplating that Cameroon was going to come and fight a case. No, they were never going to do that because they know that they cannot make an argument that the policy was implemented. So they'd rather just say, let's see what these Ambazonian people are going to do with it. My appeal to Ambazonia is that, look, also adopt the positive law interpretation. And this is another aspect of positive law interpretation. UN, Article 76B, had three principles. The principle of international responsibility, which goes to United Nations articles, especially Article 1 and 2. The principle of international obligation, which is addressing to the trusteeship administrator, United Kingdom. Article 5 was completely violated. They did not abide to their terms. But there was also another principle that was our responsibility, the principle of consultation. We failed to serve our interests. We should admit it. Foncha and Endele did not represent the best interests of Ambazonia, even though the Amazonian people have done their best to vote that independence was the outcome. But if you do not use positive law interpretation of the facts, then you will always be having yourself to be thinking that there will be some element of law that is going to state that the Republic of Cameroon, let me go back to Bakassi issue. Granting Bakassi to Republic of Cameroon can never happen under international law because there's no such international personality as Republic of Cameroon having boundaries at Bakassi, because the Republic of Cameroon boundaries ends at Mongo. The next state is Republic of Ambazonia, and Dr. Ali Abdulsalam Treki in 2010 confirmed that by bringing in the gifts of two maps, because the United Nations and ICJ had commissioned a boundary treaty following the Green Tree Accord to ensure that there should never be any more contentious boundary problem between two republics, Republic of Cameroon. Unbeknownst to them, the map of Republic of Cameroon to this date ends at Mongo, because Republic of Cameroon had its boundaries different, has its independence different from Republic of Ambazonia. Please, it is the type of facts that we, moving and thinking about how to correct our problem, need to be clung on to, so that we make our corrections and stop our tendencies for always having problems with issues that may not be relevant. I know that the moment we will have our sovereign state, will become probably the most democratic country in the world. But before we have that country, we must understand that the sovereignty is now being contested. And you cannot contest the sovereignty by dividing yourself into splintering elements, none of which are promoting that sovereignty. That is the reason why the international community started promoting the concept of stopping this war and for stopping the war, but also having the independence at the same time. But you cannot stop the war by having us a special status, which is basically what they were trying to give Katanga people in Zaire, and calling for everybody to come and dialogue together. You cannot have a negotiated settlement unless you address the principal's position, which the sovereignty is the issue. I hope my appeal is that it's for us to just look at the best parts that are available for us, which is we have a country. The country has been denied us because Cameroon is claiming the honors. We reject that premise, and we can make an argument in the law, which is already been done by the Republic of Ambazonia. The only problem is that we are psychologically not still in tune with presenting this case to the world, because we are divided all over the place, presenting weaker and quote unquote inferior arguments. If we all stick to this factual argument of our history, the world will wake up and say, no, these people need their own independent, or at the minimum should be granted an exclusive referendum analogous to what the Brexit vote was. We have so many precedents about referendum that I believe we should be able to kick that running, but we will need to develop the political caucus for that. We need to prepare ourselves to now be singing on the same script and stating to the world that this distinctive English, you can even put the word pidgin English speaking people in the world, deserve to be recognized as their own country, or at the minimum, grant them an exclusive referendum, like an exit referendum. Brexit vote happened by invocation of the Maastricht Treaty, which allowed any country to break away. Crimea has happened with Russia, and they may even do it in the Donbass region. We are in the best position right now, as we are speaking, for promoting the permanent solution of an intractable problem, as long as we stay away from politicking. And politicking is what is taking place right now.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Comrade Valentine, I see your hand is up, and I think before you ask your question, I like when he brings again the issue of referendum, which was what we had last week on a very interesting topic as well. All right, Comrade Valentine.
Thank you very much, Doctor, and thank you, Mr. Ngang, for this opportunity. In your expose, you highlighted or you flagged the issue of the gaps that were created by frontier as lack of knowledge, not being proactive, being naive. I just want to go straight to the point. The way forward, do you believe in the force of argument or the argument of force? Revolution. Thank you.
Okay, I like that argument. I believe in power. I wouldn't even bother myself by going into that kind of phraseology. I believe in power, and what we are doing is prosecuting power. Power is the ability to elicit compliance from a recalcitrant subject or object. And the moment it is in your best interest to make sure that you are not in the negative end of that power equation. We, going into this situation, have to recognize that we were the only people to have unilaterally disarmed. It is so shameful that it bothers you to find that we disarmed ourselves. The mobile wing was disarmed by Frontier. It was the first executive order. Not by Frontier, by Muna, when Joa was on ceremonially replaced after the coup d'etat of 1966, organized by Ahidjo in Boya. People don't know that Ahidjo organized a coup d'etat to remove our elected prime minister of Gostin Joa and replace him with the puppet Muna. And his first act was to dissolve our paramilitary force, which was called the mobile wings. I saw the last traces of it. So when you are talking about the force of argument, first symbolic thing, get power, bro, and you will get what you want. But then to get power, you have to obey the rules. Every theater of change has rules. Okay, when we engaged the struggle at the beginning, we knew that we had no power. We had disarmed the rest of pan-Cameronism, which is that negative force which is psychologically everywhere inserted by the dominance of Francophone, making us not have a sense of our identity, which is what Thibault Nagy claimed, that there's too much Cameroonianness. Indeed, there's too much. It is alive and well. We understood that we had to show cause that we have been a distinctive people over the course of years, over the course of hundreds of years, from 1854. We were not just, we are not seceding from anybody. We are the most legitimate case. So we made it, and that's why the construction, the constitutional deconstruction model is so logical and so simple. Cameroon cannot stay in the same room with us because they will have nothing to argue. Yes, but why are we not taking advantage of it? If you do that, and then you couple it with now your sense of awareness of those rights, remember, you have now understand that these are truths. These are indisputable truths. You associate those truths with the rights. You are inalienable rights. Now you are angry. Are you angry enough? Are you incensed? Then anger does not call for you being rash. That's another thing about change process. It calls for cool contemplative action from you to see now how are you going to change this dynamics of power, which has never been in our favor. That is what the Republic of Ambazonia was pursuing from post the Green Tree Accord, when we exhausted domestic remedy. That's what we have been pursuing in our diplomatic missions. That's what we are currently pursuing right now. We are pursuing power which will enable us illicit compliance from La République de Cameroon on the terms that will allow for the most minimum of trauma to our people and the most maximum efficiency in the deliverance of our independence. It can be executed through the mechanism of sovereignty recognition, which is the advice we receive from everybody we can. Life examples. I've been in the United States since I dropped here, and they have told us clearly, you guys have a good case, but you have I would use the one, a terrible, horrible political process. In 2006, after Green Tree Accord ended the legal aspects, they told us clearly, the Subcommittee on Africa, it has volumes of Ambazonian documents. If you go to Congress, just know that your document will have to be cross-referenced. So don't make any lie. Don't go and lie there. Everything that's supposed to have been argued is sitting there in the Subcommittee on Africa. The State Department was part of my part-time environment. I went there every day. They had told us what to do. We go and secure sovereignty recognition, specifically from African country. It was very important that they say African country, because if Sweden recognizes us, it will not be as important as if Nigeria recognizes us, because there's something known as sphere of influence. That's the same thing South Africa told us in 2006. Or was it 2007? Russia, we met them in 2007, and China at the United Nations, the permanent security members. They told us, do not waste your time bringing cases in the United Nations. Do you know why? They have the veto vote, veto votes. How would Russia entertain a case of self-determination, which is analogous to our cause, when they have Chechnya issue? I'm not even bringing the Ukraine issue right now. They used to have Chechnya issue. I was hanging out with the Chechnya opposition guys here in DC. They had then later on they had Georgia, and they have the Uzbekistan and other republics. Now you have you understand, Russia cannot be entertaining it in the United Nations. China will not do it because they have Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the Muslim minorities, and so many countries. So when you get advice from members of the Security Council, we've gotten it from the United States, we've gotten it from China, we've gotten it from Russia, all after the Green Tree Accord has concluded the legal aspect. And then South Africa told us we are too distant away. You have to get Nigeria, and then we will know what next happens. That is how international relationship works. You cannot go and abuse Nigeria and think you get away with it.
Okay. I'm not cutting you short. It's becoming very interesting, and I wish we could have more time. But let me just ask Comrade Okakis to ask his question before we conclude. May I also remind all our participants that this is an intellectual debate, and we are going to create room for it to be on YouTube, because we need a greater Ambazonian community to understand the options that we have and which way is the way forward. Comrade Okakis.
Yeah, thank you for a very exciting expose. I have this one question I want to ask Dr. Ngang. If the leader of the ADC, or is it, if Cho Ayaba was in this forum today, you as a leader, what would you say to him concerning the kidnappings going on the ground that are counterproductive to the course we are following? Because whatever we are doing in respect to what they are doing just brings everything to zero. So that is my question. It might be off topic, but it's important to me. Thank you.
Well, you've asked a specific question, and you notice in my discussion, I tend to a little bit not identify groupings, or even more importantly, individuals. But as a principal position, the revolution is totally off course, and the group dynamics that exploded after 2017 is a problem. And let me just cite two areas that is so horrible that I would like to track down, make an attempt to trace who originated this. How would you deny education? Is the denial of education strategic? Or is illiteracy strategic? then the question you need to find out that is not having wealth a strategic aspect of attending to getting independence. These two things have been promoted under the emotional context of school boycotts and the Monday Ghost Towns. Those things are completely off. They were not supposed to have been part of our strategy of acquiring power. Remember, we have no power. So if you have no power, you shouldn't be doing things that are anti-power, that depleting your already remnants of power you have. But I think these things were introduced into our revolution by the consortiumist folks. But then you understand why the consortium folks were a change process that yielded to the domestic jurisdiction of Cameroon. It's perfectly okay to organize teacher strikes, lawyer strikes, and the rest. They were not supposed to be part of the change process associated with sovereignty. They cannot, by nature, it is not possible. So I'm not inclined to be identifying actions, but now that everybody has broken down and is in this state of seeking hegemony, which is why you have groups, and you should also know that once you leave, you let the tiger out of his cage, it's hard to corral again. We were aware that some of these actions can easily be taken advantage of by two forces, by the forces of an illiterate population and by the forces of the establishment forces that are created by the Republic. We don't know now who may be promoting all these things that are going around where people are going to schools. But if you do not have these leaders, and if you mention Cho Ayaba, he did not bring this out, but I know fully well because I hang with him. But as an organization, they may have parties in ground zero who they may not have control of them. The point I'm just making is that to adjudicate at this level is not where my emphasis is, because I'm still waiting for the primary organization that promoted these two doctrines, the school boycott and the Monday Ghost Town, to officially come out and state unequivocally that this must stop. This was promoted, if I'm not mistaken, by the consortium. I remember yes, it was promoted because and used to cause strikes, and it was supposed to create a sense of control of your people that will enable them have power. And I believe at one time it was interpreted as being what will attract international intervention. There was a time when I was told, and I think I was told, that if only they keep going out on the streets, then United Nations was going to come and intervene. But these are things that we were told clearly in 2007. Forget the United Nations, they're never going to be involved in your matter. Seek recognition. I am most focused on that. I'm not concerned about anything that will be like fighting this fire.
Yes.
The principle, once you address the principle, then you solve the problem. This is where the way forward should be focused on.
Okay. All right, let me just give Comrade Dennis a few 2 minutes to run up, and then I will run up the session. Comrade DA, I see your hand is up, or was it the previous hand?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Coordinator. Now, I just want to let Comrade Edwin understand that now all of us are criticizing the actions that were being made. These actions, school boycott and ghost towns, were made as a statement. They were a statement. Let me remind you that Uganda has closed schools for 2 years because of the COVID. So the period that we are doing this is not for eternity. So don't consider the school boycott that is a temporary thing, the ghost towns is a temporary thing, as something that was wrong. No, it was right, because La République was doing everything to show the world that it is in control of our territory, and we wanted to show the world that we are in control of our territory. So, and the idea that we can just go out and convince states to recognize us, that is completely wasting your time. Who will recognize you without any situation where you have shown that you are able to take control of your territory? No, it cannot be done. So if this is what the Republic of Ambazonia is promoting, then let it do it, but it cannot tell us that that will lead to any recognition. It will not. We know that very well. So let us focus on things that have some likelihood of giving us back our territory, rather than say we want to convince states to recognize us. On what basis? They will not. Because if you want to make an argument, go to the ICJ first. Once the ICJ pronounces itself, then you have a possibility that some states can recognize you based on the ICJ decision.
On that note, you were trying to say that by doing school boycott and the Monday Go stance, you are acquiring power. I will call it you are depleting power. Okay, the strategy that is predetermined in the Republic of Ambazonia, which is not a group, it's the sovereign state that should be exciting to every person that is under Cameroon subjugation, is the one that acquires power. Recognition is real. It is real because we have made the investigation. A country understands our problem. The only requirement that was absent us is the two requirements. Show a modicum of unity was the last requirement we were granted in Abuja. If you come back with a symbol that you're united, you were going to get it. Remember, Skakuf was the closest we came towards united. But unfortunately, Skakuf lasted only from February to July. And unbeknownst to Ambazonian, because of what we were doing in Nigeria, after the Skakuf first conclave, February 28th, I attended the conference on insecurity in the Gulf of Guinea, which was organized by the South-South forces of Nigeria after the Bakassi issue had been handed over and there was some clamor and contentious politics, especially with the demilitarization of the Niger Delta folks. They organized a conference in Abuja in which I was one of the few invitees to the objection of the European Union president who attended it and objected, saying that if I could be invited, Yaoundé could invite Biafra, and they didn't. They said no, they had the right. Why is this conference important? Because we had a relationship with them. They inserted in their resolution, unbeknownst to me, what we now call the principle of territoriality. And it is a simple premise that countries should adhere to their boundaries as obtained at their times of independence. Okay, so if we want to get going with recognition, stick to the facts. And if you stick to the facts, you're also by nature sticking to your rights. And that is what is going to give us the power. I'm not interested in starting actions that I'm only emotionally connected to it and arouse boys' emotion in ground zero when I don't have the ability to promote the logical end. We will have recognition.
Okay, Mr. Edwin, before I run up, you made mention of the issue of referendum. I just want to ask you the last question. How do you think through a referendum we can get our sovereignty?
Oh, great, great. Did you know that the United Kingdom House of Lords on November 14, 2018, Lord Barton and Viscount Waverley, unbeknownst to us, are having a debate on the permanent solution premise of the so-called Anglophone problem. Okay, they brought the principle of international peacekeeping contingent. That is important. Okay, you collect, because we are people who seek our best interests. We are seeking all modalities to make sure that independence comes with minimum of trauma and maximum of efficiency. We also have been observing the international landscape. We know there was a situation in Senegambia that happened between 1993 and 1998. It was dissolved amicably. The Senegambia Union was dissolved because reason prevailed. We know about the old United Arab Republic that existed from 1957 to 1961. We know of what is going on in the Yemens, South Yemen and North Yemen. There are so many parallels, even if you include Kosovo. If you come as a people who understand their entitlement to their sovereign rights, and you articulate it, which we have 100% confidence we can do. The only problem is, are we going to be having our own very brothers challenging us? That has been our problem, not Cameroon. If we come in united that we already have a sovereign state, then we ask, we want this problem resolved through two mechanisms. And because, why two? When we were hanging out with our champion, President Jolly Rawlings, he was the one who suggested that you should not give us only one choice, which is just recognize this sovereignty. It took us pain to think that, okay, if we have to, as the diplomats always like to be given choices, we have them two choices. So we are confident that if the United Kingdom is already debating that our matter will require an international peacekeeping contingent, if we tie that to the call for an exclusive, the word must be introduced, exclusive referendum for these indigenous English-speaking people of what is now called the North and Southwest provinces, then someone is going to try to investigate why would anyone else not want this to come in as the permanent solution. After all, we have done our work and found out that these two people came to create a confederation which just did not work. After all, there is no other people being compelled to experiment in bilingualism. After all, Canada has just enhanced the distinct right of Quebecois, far superior than what was happening before the Maastricht Accord of 1987. So when we are not doing our job to serve our interests, then you shouldn't expect other people to advocate for you. Yes, exclusive referendum can happen. It can happen, and United Kingdom will champion it because that's what Tony Blair did for Kosovo. And that is possibly what Russia is going to impose in the Donbass region.
All right, thank you very much. At least we are now getting the way forward of recognition of sovereignty and of course using exclusive referendum. I will request any other participant who has a question to please channel his question to Mr. Edwin. If you do not have his contact details, please feel free to contact Antibeg or the Alliance, Southern Cameroon Alliance. They'll be able to give you his contact details so that you can pose your question to him and he will have enough time to address it to your understanding. Without much I say, on behalf of the Southern Cameroon Alliance, I actually want to thank Mr. Edwin Ngang for having taken time off his busy schedule to give us a very nice presentation. And I must confess that I've learned quite a lot that I never knew. And I can see that we still have people who are a resource in this debate of our revolution quest. All we need as Southern Cameroonians is to be able to let our ego go, let the hegemony go, and get those with the knowledge. Because from my point of view, I believe that there's a knowledge gap in this particular revolution. Those who have the knowledge, the intellectuals or the academia, I think they have sidelined themselves because some people who lack knowledge and direction have taken over. And of course, those people seem to be populists. So I really appreciate your contribution this evening. And I think more than often, I'll be knocking at the doors of Republic of Ambazonia to get more knowledge. And as I said, we are going to put this debate on YouTube, and we are still going to organize more debates. And I hope, Mr. Edwin, you will not hesitate to accept another invitation from us on another topic that will help to carve the way for our people. So thank you very much. God bless you and give you long life, because we need life in order to get this revolution. Thank you very much. We can all give a hand of applause to Mr. Edwin before we give up.
It's my pleasure, and I always end by saying, together we will make Ambazonia happen.
Amen. Okay, the session is over.
Thank you.
I thank all the participants who have come in, and I really appreciate them. God bless you.
Great presentation, Comrade Edwin.
Thank you. It's my humble duty for our cause. We are just beginning. We need to carve ourselves a new destiny.